long before she gave us post-apocalyptic and alternate timeline masterpieces. Emily St. John Mandel wrote a haunting, atmospheric story about disappearance and memory, and the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of the past. Today, I'm diving into this early work to explore what makes it such a compelling read, and how you can already see the seeds of Mandel's signature style taking root here. Whether you are a longtime fan or just discovering her work for the very first time, this is definitely a journey worth taking. Let's get into it. Emily St. John Mandel's debut novel already contains the DNA of everything she would later refine and deepen. Disappearance as a mode of being, the subtle devastation of fractured families, language as both refuge and failure, and the ache of lives lived in motion without arrival. On the surface, Last Night in Montreal appears to be a mystery about a missing girl. But at its core, it's a novel about people who choose, consciously or not, to vanish, and about the collateral damage that choice leaves behind. The novel braids together three central threads. The first belongs to Lilia, who was abducted as a child by her biological father and raised in a perpetual fugitive state. She learns at a very early age that safety means constant motion and that stillness invites capture. The second thread belongs to Eli, a stalled linguistics grad student whose intellectual obsession with dying languages mirrors his emotional paralysis and his attraction to a woman who embodies impermanence. And then there's Christopher, a detective whose pursuit of Lilia metastasizes into obsession, hollowing out his marriage and abandoning his daughter in the process. Christopher's thread eventually splits into a fourth when his daughter's story begins to come into focus. These narratives move backward and forward in time, circling around the same events from different angles, accumulating meaning rather than resolving cleanly. Mandel resists the satisfaction of closure. What matters most here is not where people end up really, but what they lose along the way. One of the novel's most striking through lines is its fixation on linguistic extinction. Eli's research on dying languages and untranslatable concepts, and the idea that each language represents a unique way of existing in the world. It's sort of the book's governing metaphor. When Lilia writes in a Motel Bible, "I wish to remain vanishing," she is articulating the same idea Eli studies academically, that disappearance is not merely absence, but the erasure of meaning and of memory and of context. A vanished language doesn't just mean that we've lost some words. It means that we've lost an entire worldview. So too then does a vanished child. This is one of Mandel's great strengths. She doesn't argue her themes, she embeds them structurally on nearly every page. Lilia has no first language. She has no stable name. She has no home. Her identity is a linguistic artifact in flux. Nearly every character in this novel is in motion. Lilia moves endlessly, convinced that stopping is equivalent to death. Eli drifts through life intellectually animated, but practically inert. Christopher travels compulsively, mistaking pursuit for purpose. Michaela, Christopher's daughter, inherits the fallout, learning independence not as freedom but as necessity. What unites them is Mandel's bleak insight that movement is not the same as progress. One of the novel's most devastating lines, "I'm not arriving anywhere, I'm only leaving somewhere else," could serve as the book's thesis. This is where Last Night in Montreal feels especially continuous with Mandel's later work. That same tension between motion and stasis, between escape and belonging, becomes central in novels like Station 11 and The Glass Hotel. Here, though, it's much more raw and less controlled, and arguably more personal and intimate. If the novel has a moral center, it lies in what happens to the people adjacent to the act of vanishing. Christopher's pursuit of Lilia is framed as professional duty, but Mandel steadily strips that justification away. His obsession destroys his marriage and leaves his daughter functionally orphaned, an echo of the very trauma he claims to be addressing. The book is unflinching in showing how righteous narratives can mask profoundly selfish behavior. Michaela's eventual bitterness, her need to blame Lilia for her family's collapse, is both unfair and completely human. Mandel understands that trauma is always searching for something it can latch onto. There is no question that Mandel's prose is already incredibly strong here. It's clean, it's precise, it's meticulous in its attention to detail. Images recur with subtle insistence: tightropes, motel rooms, Gideon Bibles, maps, cold coffee. And they accumulate symbolic weight seemingly effortlessly. With that said, this is still clearly the work of a young novelist. The dialogue occasionally feels over-articulated, especially in philosophical exchanges where characters speak just a little too fluently in theme. This is an area Mandel would dramatically refine in her later novels, when she learned to have characters speak between the lines and also when to let silence do the work instead. But still, even here, the voice is unmistakably hers. The novel closes with very little consolation. There's no real cathartic revelation, no moral accounting that restores any sort of balance. Enough answers are provided for the book to feel satisfying, but instead of closure, Mandel leaves us with a gut-wrenching devastation that feels earned and unfortunately inevitable. An understanding that vanishing isn't so much an event as it is a condition, and that some disappearances don't resolve into meaning at all, but simply leave absence behind as the final state. Last Night in Montreal is a haunting debut, one that announces a writer already obsessed with the questions she will spend her career refining. What does it mean to belong? How much of identity is language? When does escape become erasure? And who pays the price when someone disappears? This may not be Mandel's most refined novel, but of the work I've read from her so far, it is her most exposed. While less formally controlled than her later novels, Last Night in Montreal is more volatile, more intimate, and less interested in shaping its damage into something easily digestible. And that refusal is precisely what gives it its power. As an entry point into Mandel's work, it's not the most accessible, but it offers a clear view of the themes she will continue to examine again and again, and it may just be the most revealing place to begin. Thank you for watching.